Good morning. My name is Mark Siomo. I'm the chairman of Ways and Means. Today is Tuesday, February 24th. I'm joined today by the sponsor of today's hearing, Councilor Tim McCarthy from Hyde Park, and to my right, my friend and colleague from East Boston, Councilor Sal Lamartina. Docket 0178 is an order for a hearing regarding excise tax collection procedures. I'd like to remind folks that today's hearing is being broadcast as well as recorded on cable, both Comcast Channel 8 and RCN Channel 82. I would ask folks in the chamber to silence any electronic devices. If anybody, any member of the public wishes to testify, there's sign-in sheets by the door to my left, and we would ask that you document your name and any affiliation. At this point, I would just like to turn it over to Celia Barton for any opening statement and introductions. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Celia Barton. I work for the first assistant for the tax collector's office, and the responsibility of the collector's office is to collect all taxes for the city of Boston. All of our collection procedures are governed by the Registry of Motor Vehicles, and everything falls under the Chapter 60 bylaws of collections.
Could we,
okay.
Yeah, my name is Dan Kelly. I'm the Deputy Tax Collector for the City of Boston. I represent over 270 cities and towns in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Been in this business for, well, pretty much born in the business. I'm very familiar. I taught at the school at Amherst on collection procedures, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 60, collection procedures, create the bills with the cities and towns, and the non-renewal program, very influential, bringing that into the state of Massachusetts.
Thank you, Dan.
And I am Michael Hutchinson. I work in the collector's office, and I'm the second assistant collector treasurer.
Osmani Rodriguez. I work for Kelly Ryan. I've been working for them for 8 years here at Boston City Hall, and I'm one of the deputy collectors.
Thank you. I think we're awaiting one other person from the registry, but at this point, I turn it over to the sponsor of the hearing, Councilor Tim McCarthy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to kind of give the monarch notes of why we're here. The statutes in the laws clearly, Dan, as you stated, if you were born into it, then you know a lot more about it than I do. My question really revolves around our constituency, our residents, our neighbors, who depend on City Hall to give them answers. So I'd like to just start out by giving you the 10,000-foot view of it. We've had many constituents call our office about excise tax in particular. They missed an excise bill years ago, and now they're getting penalized presently. So not to get into individual cases, but we've had a number. My chief of staff worked for the previous city councilor, and she recalls many of these issues in the past, going back upwards of 10 years. So a couple of the cases that came to us recently brought this to fruition as a counsel's office couldn't really get the answers we were looking for. So realizing that there was a lot of red tape, at least externally some red tape, I wanted to have a clear conversation on what we're doing, how we're doing it, and maybe better explain what the people may need and how we can change systematically to make it easier for them. So in no way do I want this to be a penalizing, punishing hearing. I've been in constituent services. I was born into it as a constituent service guy. And so to me, that's the most important part of what I do as a city council, is make sure that people on the street know how things are run and how to get things fixed. So let me just start. We'll kick right out of the gate. Does the city have the right to recall accounts? Meaning, do they have an opportunity to pull them back from the vendor?
Pull them back from.
In other words, can they, once it's issued to the deputy tax collector, bring it back, recall it into the city?
Correct.
Abatement procedure. It's the city's bill.
Yeah.
The city has all the authority on the bill. We're a vendor of the city.
Mm-hmm.
There's this. Can I give this handout to you? Can I just hand it to you?
Sure.
So I can refer to it during it.
Yep. Okay.
So if I refer to number 2, number 3, that's what I'll be going to.
Okay, perfect. Yep.
So the question is, if we turned it to a collection agency, could we take that bill back?
Correct.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
To answer your question, the answer is yes.
Yes. It's the
and-
city of Boston's bill, so we can
Okay.
we always have control over the whole.
So I guess, you know what might be easier, up to you, Mr. Chair, if you gave, maybe you gave your umbrella view of what exactly you do, and then we can get into our questions. Would that be
Okay.
easier?
You want to start what happens first?
Sure.
Okay.
Please.
So with the assessor's office get the file from the Registry of Motor Vehicles, okay? They take the file, they assess the file, and they create a data for us to mail the bills. The collector's office in turn mails the tax bill, 30 days, paid within 30 days. If the bill is not paid, we send a demand notice, which is a $5 charge stating that the bill has not been paid. After that time has lapsed, which is 14 days, usually we go a little longer, giving people more of opportunity to pay it. We then, in turn, turn it over to the collection agency once it's in the warrant stage. Okay? So then I'll let you say.
So to recap, the Registry of Motor Vehicles originates this bill. All the data comes from the registry. Just to recap what Celia said, it will go to the assessors department, which has full control of this bill for 3 years of that time. They can rebate them. Any taxpayer can come in if they have sold the car, cars got stolen, lost the plate, didn't feel like they got charged. They moved from Lynn to Boston, Chelsea. They have to get it recommitted to another community. That's all done in the assessors department. In the collectors department, it's warranted to the collector with an amount of money that they're warranted to collect. That's when the bill goes out. The bill will go out for 30 days. Usually the city of Boston is very lenient on that. They don't go on after the 30th day, do they go to a demand period. You have lockbox, you have a lot of process of payments. That's a big commitment for the first commitment is the largest commitment for the city, which is a large. It's millions of dollars due the city. So it's time frame. They will have a leave-in period, probably like a month or half to do that. In that period, the taxpayer is getting another 45 days. After that period, there's a file that's created, and it's called a demand. The demand is sent out with a $5 charge, which all these charges and fees are statute by Chapter 60, Massachusetts General Law. And there's no guidelines that you can defer from that. It all has to be, it's all spelled out in Chapter 60. So the city could add more than a $5 fee. They choose not to. The law was passed 4 years ago. They could go up to $50. Some communities they just don't do that to hurt the taxpayer. There's a big gray area in that part with the demand fee. So this city chooses not to do that, leniency to the taxpayer. After the taxpayer gets a demand notice, they do get another probably 45 days before the city moves on to a warrant stage. The warrant stage is where we come in as a vendor and mail a notice out to the taxpayer. Now, this is the third notice the taxpayer has received. On the notice that we mail the taxpayer, it says that you have a warrant to collect, not to arrest or anything like that to be miscommunicated, to collect, a warrant to collect this outstanding bill. After a period of time goes by, we usually give them 60 days. Okay. After that time, we go out and we do a service of warrant. Service of warrant means we go to last and usual place of abode, their home. We do not put it in mailboxes. We do not put it anywhere that's taxpayer really can't find it. It's usually in their door, in between the door. We can't go anywhere in their post office, anything of that, because that's against the law. So if a taxpayer comes home, they'll see a notice that says a warrant to collect. Little orange strip will be on that envelope, sealed envelope with the taxpayer's name on it. Last and usual place of abode. That's Massachusetts general law also. After that period, there's another notice that goes out saying you are going to be marked at the RMV for non-renewal of collection of excise or parking ticket. Once that's done, it goes to procedure that we mark it at the RMV. That means we're holding up a driver's license and a renewal of a registration. So in that period, they've got notified already 6 times before we do this procedure. Once that's done, the taxpayer will not get a notice again until they come up to renew their driver's license. Before they renew their driver's license, 30 days before they renew their driver's license, the RMV will notify them through an RMV notice that you have a delinquent tax. That's another 7 times they've been notified. When it's come time to renew a registration on a plate, they can't renew a registration on a plate. They'll go to the window at the registry, which being our firm, we're in every registry. There's 27 points of a collection in the Commonwealth that they can pay through this firm. So that we make it very convenient. Kiosk machines throughout the whole state. So they have the opportunity to go anywhere to make it. Not to come to the city of Boston. If they lived in Springfield, they could go to Springfield. They lived in Haverhill, they could go to Haverhill, Lowell, Lawrence. Any registry that they have, they could go there and do that. It's very tax convenient for the taxpayer. If they don't do that in that time frame, and the driver's license now is gone to 5 years because we need to get our picture taken for Homeland Security. So that could be a period if a taxpayer could wait 5 years to get notified if they're not renewing their driver's license. And some of those questions that you're getting, Council, is probably in that time frame that's where that is because 5 years is a long time. And people in 5 years are saying, well, I paid that tax back 5 years ago. I lost my check, I canceled my check, or something happened that period. We get that all the time. But it's usually not that. It's usually a tax that got forgot about, and then it comes up 5 years later. So that's where the complaint, I think most of your complaints are coming from, probably, if I was hearing them on your side. I hear it all the time. So that's the city, our firm, everybody did what was supposed to do. It's the taxpayer. And in the Massachusetts general law, which I gave you the handout, in the Department of Revenue Regulations and Chapter 60, again, I keep referring to it, when you get a driver's license in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it's up to the individual receiving that, even on your driver's license, when you fill it out, at the individual to search and seek their tax. To spell that out is pretty blunt. If you do not receive the tax from the city of Boston for some reason or any other city, it's still your obligation as a taxpayer, knowing that you have a driver's license, knowing that you have a registration in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, to go and search and seek your tax. If you do not pay an excise tax in 10 years, you know your obligation is to pay one. So it's pretty explicit. That law is spelled out so explicit. And it's spelled out to help the taxpayer, not and to help the city. So, and after that is done, when somebody comes in to pay one bill, if they have numerous bills, a lot of individuals will let them go for 5 years. And in that period of time, sometimes the average person does not have just one car; they have 2 or 3 cars, or family members they register to the father. And the daughter, the son, or whatever doesn't pay it because it's registered to dad. And then that draws up another thing. Well, my daughter had that car. Yeah, sir, but it was registered to you. And knowing that your kid's in college, child's in college, or something like that, you probably give it to your son or daughter to make the obligation full, and it doesn't happen. So that's another thing that's an internal thing with families that happens all the time. Or divorces happen. That my wife was supposed to take care of that, never happened, never transferred the plate into my wife's name. It all reverts down how it's written at the Registry of Motor Vehicles. That's how it goes through. That's how we track it. We track it by your plate number, red, green. We track it by your X number. We track it by your Social Security number. So there's all different avenues that we track it back to that individual. So we know we have the right individual. So that's pretty much the broad scope of what happens in that period of time. The complaints you're getting, I think I probably hit on probably 2 of them that are major ones that we get. The other ones, usually it's a lost plate. I haven't had the car in 5 years. I didn't know. I thought the insurance company had canceled my insurance. That doesn't help you at all. The plate has to be turned back into the RMV. If you do not have the plate in your possession, you have to file for what they call a lost plate affidavit. So it all triggers. We all abide by the rules of Massachusetts general law and the RMV. So the RMV is the one that triggers the bill. The assessors are the ones that can abate the amount of the bill. Nobody else can touch the amount of the bill but the assessors department here. And they have a limitation of 3 years to do that. After that, Celia and Mike only have the obligation to collect that bill. And we're on the side of it that we want to bring all the revenues into the city. And when the city gets those revenues, then the records will get cleaned up. But an individual right now with the technology that we have in the state, which our state's pretty good because I deal in other states, is that our system is very well working very well. Our bookkeeping in the state of Massachusetts, believe it or not, RMV is in the top 5. And it's pretty good. And they track everybody's record. And if you move out now of the state of Massachusetts, it's reciprocal. So if you go to Florida and you moved out for 7 or 8 years, there's no statute of limitation on an excise tax. So if we marked you back 7 or 8 years ago, you go to Florida, you're down there and you can't renew a driver's license. Now you'll get a phone call from your taxpayer saying, well, I moved out of the city of Boston. Well, yeah, you did, but it's reciprocal now almost in every state in the country. So that's all the registries are jumping on board with that. I think I kind of spelled it out. If you have any other questions.
I just wanted to add to that we issue close to 500,000 excise bills a year. and the collection rate is 96% prior to turning anything over to warrant. Okay,
Which is similar to our assessing
Right.
collection rate, too.
So on the handout that you gave us, Dan, it said prior to 1992. Do you have a lot of issues prior to 1992? Because one of the cases that we have is 89, I believe, and or 88, 89. The gentleman had claimed that he paid back then. He had renewed his license several times before the last bill came in. And this kind of is one of the reasons why we're here today is this man took it to court, sat in front of a judge, and to read the judge's quote, Judge Ball wrote, "This cries of unfairness seems to this cry of unfairness seems to have some substance. It was pointed out to him in court that the city does have discretion under the law to consider his request for abatement without prepayment. It was suggested that he approach Counsel McCarthy in this report. In the meantime, I'm constrained to avow a motion to dismiss." So, reading that to me, and not being a lawyer, but reading that sounds like, this is abiding by the letter of the law, but is it really within the faith of what we're trying to give our constituents and our neighbors?
Just to follow up on that, that was the appeal on that case. The first case got thrown out. It got thrown out because the judge in the first case said the law is the law, basically. This was, and I've never seen a judge write that like that on a piece of paper. I've never, in all the procedures I've ever been through in my life. And I was dumbfounded when I saw it, honestly, Counselor. It goes back to this, go to the city, that the city has done everything proper. The bill is old. If he went and filed for an abatement back in those times, yeah, maybe the assessors would have abated that bill. This right here is not in that category.
So what would be the procedure? Okay.
Counsel, I'm sorry. Can I add to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I work in the office, and I kind of, when the constituents come in to pay their bills, we love to service them just the way everybody does here. But I think I usually say we teach them excise tax 101, and I've been doing that since the very beginning. We really take pride in educating as much as we can in the time that we have at the window. But I think one of the things that kind of falls to the wayside that I have seen is an individual who has owed an excise tax, like let's say in 1991, and they never paid it. So let's say from 1991 to the present day, they have been paying on time. For that reason, they don't, prior to 1992, they haven't marked licenses at that time. So they've fallen through that, to the wayside, but they haven't been able to, they haven't been marked at the registry during the meantime. So they haven't been called
Here for a second.
to pay that.
Back in the beginning of times when the registry we were doing suspensions, and all the cities and towns, no matter your size, we were allowed to bring, like the city of Everett, I think we were allowed to bring 25 hearings a month into the registry. What we did is we suspended your driver's license back in the early 80s. And these are still here. These are called 256 forms. I didn't know we were going to get into specific cases, but this case falls into that category. This individual that you're speaking about is in that category. He got suspended in 1978. The suspension is still on the records at the RMV. Again, if you pull the driver's record of the individual you're speaking about, it's not only the city of Boston the individual has a problem with. He has warrants out in other communities for violations, for numerous violations, which I don't think it's right for me to speak on.
Right. Understood.
So, like I said, I didn't want to get into specific cases, but you brought that up. But I just can tell you that there's a 256 form still outstanding on this individual, prior other things out in this individual. The taxes back then, 1992, when we came up with an non-renewal, we went back 10 years. But before that, the suspensions never went away. So the suspensions were still on to this day. And they're called 256 forms. And people that owe taxes for over 20 years still have these forms. And this case you're talking about has one.
Right. And how are we still actively trying to notify them, or are we just...
It's a city's discretion. Very few of these pop up during a year. Very few. Usually somebody's gone through this, they've renewed their driver's license. Again, not talking about a specific case, but this has been brought up numerous times in this case.
Okay.
Okay, so we're driving without a license right now.
So what's the process for dispute over a paid or unpaid excise bill?
Well, it goes back to the Massachusetts general laws. I mean, you're into the assessors. The assessors only have the authority for 3 years. And it's up to the city. I mean, if the city chooses to, and I've never seen a city do this because there's no statute of limitation on a tax. I mean, I don't see the city when funds are being so difficult to collect for cities and towns right now to cut a dateline on and say, we're going to forgive all that. That's not me to make that decision.
No.
Yeah.
That's up to the city to make that decision.
That's not what I'm.
Okay, so so basically, to answer your question, I would answer it that the city's taken the spot that a tax is a tax, and it's outstanding.
So how many complaints do you think we get a year regarding this specific? You know, I went to the RMV, I can't get my license. Now I'm back at the assessor's office. How many do we get? Not as much as
I could get back to you with those numbers.
Okay.
But license suspensions is definitely handled different than a regular taxpayer.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, understood.
That's
Understood. I think my last question really is, so has the city considered whether or not it's in the best interest of the city and its constituents to utilize the same collections vendor over years? How does that work?
we actually go out to bid every 3 years.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So it's a 3-year contract. You renew every year, and then you go out to bid on the third year.
Okay. So and so
Actually, we're into the second year of this contract now.
okay. And the constituent services goes through you, Ozzy?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Or they can do it by mail.
They can go to any, like 27 offices they can go to. And we collect a lot of your bills, not in Boston, because people work throughout the Commonwealth, and online. They can pay it, and they can pay it like 7 different ways.
Okay. And we're happy with the vendor?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. All right. I think I'm done with my questions. Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Scott.
Great. So at this point, that concludes the council's portion. I don't know if anybody. Okay. I have George Bashir. George Bashir. You want to set up the? Oh, there's a podium right here.
Sit right there. You can just, you know what, you just have him sit.
Yeah, sure.
Good job. Good job.
No. You can just sit. Yeah, that one right there would be fine. And if you could state your name and your address.
My name is George Bashir. My address is 1008 South Street, Rosendale, Mass. I lived at that address for 30-odd years. As far as my childhood driving record goes, I've always been a little bit aggressive. I never break the law violently. I've had numerous driving citations, but that has got nothing to do with this, with the excise tax. Driving fast, getting stopped for doing 45 in a 35-mile zone, or rolling through a stop sign has nothing to do with an excise tax, okay? My excise taxes are paid my whole life. All those things that we're talking about, I had to go in and clear them up. I've went and cleared all those things up. What's going on here is the city's inability to keep up with this, with their documentation of payment. All this is they forget to make the entity that this is paid. I'll give you, for instance, I get a letter in the mail from the registry. Your license is suspended. For what? A ticket. I keep nothing. I never keep nothing. But at that time, I was keeping my bank statement. I had a whole pile of them. I says, I got this thing. So I went around that time. I pulled out the thing. There it is. I got the check. I went down this registry. 45 minutes, an hour online. I show him the check. Okay, you paid it, Mr. Bashir. Go over in that line and reinstate your license for $20. I have to wait another half an hour. Okay? Well, why do I have to reinstate my license? Should have suspended it to begin with. These things are going these things are going all the time in the state. I got stopped for rolling through a yellow light. Cop starts to look through my records. What he did, next thing, another cop car comes up. Here I am, and lugging me off to the police station. But for what? I knew I paid everything. I said, geez, a lot of times I forget. I know I had everything paid. What's going on here? They lug me in the thing. The cop in the station goes over the thing. You don't belong here. This thing has been paid. So here I am. I'm lugged off to jail because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. It's just the inability to keep correct records. That 1988 stands out by itself. It's 28 years ago. How much is it now? How can, and they make a law. This is an insane thing. None of this could have happened before they instituted this law in 2004. It couldn't have happened. The state don't keep records past 7 years. The city don't keep records past 7 years. Well, how am I? It's like you're being in Germany. You're guilty until you're proven innocent. And 28 years ago, prove yourself innocent. How can I possibly prove myself innocent? How can I possibly come up with that check that I paid that? This is insanity. Only some criminals would draw up a law like that. This is a law that's drawn up through collusion and conspiracy to commit extortion. What they're doing is extorting money from the elderly of the state of Massachusetts.
Okay, calm down.
I know. Well, I had to listen to all that foolishness. But they're extorting money from the elderly. You get some older me. You forget to pay the thing. So they go through your thing. There you go. He don't know whether you paid it or not. But he was scared to death he's going to lose his license, so he goes out and gives them the money. It's extortion. They're making you pay these taxes that you probably don't owe, or you lose your license. Give me your money, I'm going to blow your brains out. There's no difference.
Okay, George, thank you. We done?
No.
I think we're done.
I had to bring this thing to court.
I know.
The judge agreed with me. I told him this was a mistake.
The judge didn't.
Can I make one more point? Can I make one more point?
One more point.
Okay. All right. This law 60 was instituted in 2004. The only way they could do what they've done is that I owed this tax in 1988. When I expressed my opinions to the judge, she agreed with me that it was probably just a mistake. Well, if it was a mistake and it was paid, then they had no right instituting law to begin with. And I should be forgiven for everything they've done to me. I went to the registry to ask them for a license.
Hey, George, that was your point? Was that your point? That you should be forgiven?
She agreed with me. And their lawyer, she's the one suggested that they should rebate it. They should be unpaid abatement. Because I would never let her make that. I would have never let the judge make that decision because she said she has to because it's law. Well, it's only law if they had a right to institute that law. If they had no right to, if that was paid and they had no right to institute that law, then that's not law.
Okay. Thank you. Yep.
You know what they've done? I was dead in 2011. That's why I missed that payment. I died in 2011 for 7 minutes. I had cardiac arrest. I had open heart surgery. I was in the hospital. I was in oblivion.
Okay.
You know, they put me through for 3 years.
Thank you, George. Okay. Okay. Do you have any final comments?
I just think again, I'll go back to my opening statement. For me, it's all about constituent services. So we can debate Chapter 60. Actually, you can debate it because I'm not a lawyer, and I don't even want to know anything more about Chapter 60, believe it or not. But I just think that as far as the constituent services, as we dug in as a council office, we couldn't get answers either. And I think that this hearing from the get-go, in my opinion, has always been about making sure that there's open transparency, how we do things down there, and why things are why things are set in motion the way they are. So for me, it's all about constituent services, and I know that this was just a particular case, but we have had others who have said, the car was stolen, they haven't paid excise tax on it because it was stolen in 2008, and all of a sudden they get the bill 5 years later, and they thought that the police report was enough to make that go away. And for me, that's common. Sometimes when you're involved in something, you don't understand that other people really don't see the way you're seeing.
Right.
In fact, this conversation has just made me realize that I have to bring plates back to the registry. I thought I could hang them in Mantown downstairs. Apparently, I have to bring them back. So, for constituents like George or anybody, it's all about making sure we're transparent.
Okay.
If I could add one thing,
Sure.
Councilor, and I agree with you. I love to notify the taxpayers of their rights. There's by no means are we doing anything that we're giving them more notices and all. If it makes you feel happy and the city of Boston happier, and the constituency in here, we could, and we've done it before, we could put an insert in one of our notices that will tell basically what the law is. It's a one-page insert. And I think to cover all the questions that you've just asked and to make you feel easier about this law, and I have no problem doing it, the owner of Kelly and Ryan, put an insert in the notice of warrant telling them that you can file for an abatement if your plate is lost, what to do with that. And it just spells out. It's just a cheat sheet. And if you feel like that would help your taxpayers, I have no problem doing that.
Yeah, that's actually a phenomenal.
Just to add to that, we actually put that in the first quarter, the original bill and the demand notice.
Because some of the
And
people
it's
who
now on the same bill. We used to have an insert, but now we have it attached.
Yeah.
So,
especially if we have lower income who don't
Yeah.
have access to computers, or seniors who don't want to have access
Yeah.
to computers. That's very important.
And they also have the application to file an abatement also is in the original bill, as well as, I believe, the demand.
Yeah, it's on the back of
it's
the bill.
actually attached to the bill now. We're actually in a new tax system.
Okay.
So it's actually part of the bill is the abatement form. And it has questions and answers, and it has the form that you can send in. So it's one piece of paper, front and back. We just implemented that probably September of 2014. So Unit 1 now will have all of that in there.
And just to clarify, the city maintains the collection until 3 years have passed, is that?
We actually have the whole database from 1970s
Okay.
that we still have, yeah. And then we turn them over periodically to the deputy collector.
It's
But we're
always
still the onus of records,
right.
so.
It's always the city's bill.
Right.
We're just the vendor to help them
Right.
bring in the money.
How long after you haven't been able to collect it, do you give it to Dan's company?
I'd say usually it's about 4 months,
4 months.
5 months by the time we,
Right.
But there's a couple of ideas we've been thinking about anyway, and I'd like to address them at a later date, just send you what we're trying to do to help out going forward.
Okay.
If we could put a notice in the current bill so that they would know then prior to it going to warrant or
Right.
anything like that
Yeah,
that we
I
could
think
do.
more information.
Because it's all about the
obviously is better.
taxpayer. We're
Right.
all, we're all
Okay.
all about the taxpayer.
Yes.
Also, if since we have the office here, if there are any questions that ever come in to the city council from the constituents, you can most certainly send somebody down or give us a call in the office, and we'll be able to clarify any situations
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
for the future.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody. Say, Dan, Michael,
Thank you.
Ozzy.
Yeah. Thanks.
Ozzy and I go way, way back. Actually, long before the tickets were given in 1988. So, yeah. So I just want to thank you. Come down and
Thank you.
You learn something new every day, and I appreciate you sharing your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
This hearing's adjourned.